My sister challenged me during Christmas. "I bet you to vanish for a few days, and you'll see nobody cares." So I said, "I accept your challenge." And I vanished. But they didn't realize that. The last place I expected to be insulted was at the Christmas dinner table, my own family's table. But that's exactly where everything began. My sister Emily had always been the golden child, the one everyone praised, the one who could do no wrong. And I was the quiet one, the one who blended into the background like furniture. The sibling people would look at and say, "Oh, I forgot you were here." That night, in front of everyone, Emily smirked and said, "I dare you to disappear for a few days. I promise you, nobody would even notice." The table went silent. Someone laughed. Someone else awkwardly cleared their throat. No one defended me. So I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Challenge accepted." At midnight I packed a small bag, walked out the back door, and vanished. No note, no text, nothing. I wanted to see if they'd even blink. I booked a cab in 2 towns over, quiet, isolated, no cell service unless I climbed a hill. For the first time in years, the silence didn't bother me. But on the second day, curiosity won, so I walked up the hill to check my phone. My screen lit up with dozens of missed calls and messages. From Mom. From Dad. From neighbors. From people I hadn't spoken to in years. But the biggest shock was Emily. Her messages weren't arrogant anymore, they were frantic. "Where are you? This isn't funny. Please come home." Then I listened to a voicemail from Mom. "Honey, we woke up and you were gone. I'm scared. Please just call us." Suddenly it hit me, they noticed. They cared. Maybe more than I ever realized. Before going home, I wanted to know how far things had gone. So I checked social media. And there it was, a clip from our Christmas dinner, posted by a relative, showing my sister daring me to disappear like I was nothing. The comments were brutal. People were calling her out, calling the whole situation toxic. "And my sister?" She responded publicly. "I didn't mean it. I was joking. My sibling means everything to us." Everything. To them. Funny how people realize your value only when you're gone. I returned home on the 5th day. The moment I walked in, my mom burst into tears. My dad hugged me so tightly it almost hurt. And Emily stood there shaking, eyes red, guilt carved into her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for you to feel invisible." I looked her in the eyes and said, "Now you know how it feels." And that's when I realized, sometimes disappearing isn't about running away, it's about showing others what your absence truly means. When Emily whispered, "Now you know how it feels," something inside me shifted. I had always imagined that hearing her apologize would feel triumphant, satisfying, maybe even healing. But instead, it felt hollow, like I was standing in a room full of people who suddenly realized they needed me only because my absence scared them. For the next few hours, the house felt strange. Everyone walked around me like I was made of glass. Mom cooked too much food, insisting I must be starving. Dad asked if I wanted him to call someone, though he never specified who. And Emily, she hovered. Every room I walked into, there she was, pretending to fold blankets or organize shelves she hadn't touched in years. It was obvious she was checking if I was still there. But the truth was, I didn't feel there. Not really. That night, I went to my room, the same room I grew up in, and realized something unsettling. Everything looked exactly as I left it, but I didn't feel like the same person who had lived there. The posters on the wall, the old books, the desk with stickers from when I was 13, it all felt like a museum exhibit of a life I'd outgrown but never admitted. And then, around 2 a.m., there was a quiet knock. Emily. She stepped inside, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed like she was afraid it would collapse under her weight. "I need to explain something," she said softly. I stayed silent. She took it as permission to continue. "You know how everyone always thinks I have everything together?" She let out a shaky breath. The perfect job, the perfect grades, the perfect reputation. But it's not true. I'm terrified all the time. Terrified of disappointing everyone. Terrified of losing control. And when I'm scared, I lash out. Her voice cracked. That stupid dare, it wasn't about you. It was about me being jealous that you could sit there quietly and just be yourself, without needing anyone's approval. I wanted people to look at me the way they never stopped looking at you. And instead of admitting it, I tried to make you feel small. I didn't know what to say. She wiped her eyes. When you disappeared, I thought. She swallowed hard. I thought something happened to you. I thought you were hurt. Or worse. And all I could think was, it would be my fault. For a moment, she looked like a frightened child, not the confident, polished sister everyone adored. I finally spoke. You didn't care before. I did, she whispered. I just didn't know how to show it. Or maybe I didn't want to. But when you were gone, it felt like the world collapsed. Her confession should have fixed everything. Should have made me forgive her, hug her, tell her we'd be fine. But something deeper had taken root during those 5 days I vanished. Something I didn't know how to name yet. I need time, I finally said. She nodded. I figured. But please, don't disappear from us again. Not like that. After she left, I couldn't sleep. Because the truth I hadn't told her was this. I didn't disappear to hurt them. I disappeared because part of me feared she might be right, that no one would miss me. But they did. And now I didn't know what to do with that knowledge. The next morning, our neighbor Mrs. Donovan came over with a plate of cinnamon rolls. She hugged me like I had returned from war. The mailman waved at me with a sort of worried relief. Even our grouchy old cat, Nimbus, refused to leave my side. It was overwhelming. By the afternoon, my phone buzzed with messages from coworkers, friends I barely spoke to, even a childhood classmate who had seen the viral clip and reached out. Are you okay? Just checking in. The outpouring of concern should have made me feel loved. Instead, I felt exposed. Like disappearing had accidentally peeled back the truth about how fragile people's perceptions were, and how easily they broke when challenged. Later, Dad asked if I wanted to take a walk. He never asked me to do anything with him before. We walked in silence through the chilly winter streets until we reached the old bridge behind our house. He rested his hands on the railing and said, You know, when you kids were little, your mom and I always worried Emily would feel left out because you were so calm, so independent. We didn't realize we were doing the opposite to you. I looked at him, puzzled. You didn't need us as much, so we stopped paying attention. That was our mistake. I didn't know how to respond. Parents admitting mistakes? That was new. He sighed. I don't expect forgiveness right away. But I hope you'll let us earn it. We walked home quietly, but something subtle had shifted between us. That evening, I went to my room again, and for the first time, I wasn't running away inside my mind. Instead, I sat down at my desk and opened a notebook I hadn't touched in years. I wrote. I disappeared to see if I mattered. I came back and discovered that I do. But now I have to learn what to do with that truth. As I closed the notebook, I realized the story wasn't about my sister's dare anymore. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about rediscovering myself. About understanding that my presence has weight, not because people panic when I'm gone, but because I finally see my own worth. And maybe, just maybe, this Christmas wasn't the moment I vanished. Maybe it was the moment I truly appeared. The days that followed were strange. My family acted cautiously around me, as if they feared I might vanish again, while I walked through my own house feeling like a visitor. Emily tried to be normal, joking occasionally, helping with chores, but there was always a tension in the air, a reminder of what had happened. And deep down, I couldn't shake a new curiosity. What would happen if I really disappeared, without warning, without anyone knowing where I went? It started small. I left for a few hours, wandered the woods behind our neighborhood, and watched the smoke rise from chimneys. I passed neighbors' houses, overhearing their conversations, noticing how life carried on, but with an emptiness that hadn't been there before. The thought crept in again: if I vanished for longer, would the world truly notice? Then came the first mysterious message. It appeared on my phone late one night. No number, no name, just a text. "We know why you left." My stomach dropped. I stared at it, heart racing. Who could possibly know? My disappearance had been so quiet, so secret. Only Emily and I knew the real reason. I texted back, "Who is this?" No reply. The next morning, an envelope was slid under my door. No handwriting, no stamp. Inside was a single Polaroid, me, sleeping in the cabin I had stayed in during my first disappearance. The photo had been taken without my knowledge. I couldn't tell whether to be terrified or impressed. Over the next week, the messages kept coming, each one more cryptic than the last. They mentioned moments from my childhood only someone close could know, secrets I had never shared with anyone. It became clear that someone, or something, had been watching me, even during my disappearance experiment. Meanwhile, Emily noticed my unease. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You're not imagining things," she said quietly. "Something is happening. I can feel it. You've changed, and it's not just because of your little challenge." I wanted to tell her to stay out of it, that she had already hurt me enough, but the fear in her eyes was real. That fear mirrored my own. Then came the night it all escalated. I was sitting in my room, the Polaroid spread across the desk, when I heard the faintest creak outside my window. At first I thought it was the wind, but then I saw it. A shadow, moving slowly, deliberately, just beyond the tree line. I froze. My mind raced. Was this some stalker, some cruel joke, or Emily? No. She wouldn't risk that. This was something else. Something darker. The shadow disappeared before I could move. And then my phone buzzed. Another message. "You can't hide forever. They are watching." I didn't know who they were. I didn't even know if it was tied to Emily's dare, or if my first disappearance had triggered something bigger. The next day, Emily refused to leave my side. We went for a walk together, but every time I stopped to look around, I felt eyes on us. Even strangers seemed too alert, too aware of us. And at home, my family's worries shifted from concern to anxiety, and then, to fear. One night I couldn't sleep. I walked into the living room and found Emily sitting alone, staring at the fireplace. "I think we've awakened something," she whispered. "Something that's been waiting. Something that knows about us." That's when I realized the truth. My disappearance wasn't just a test of family, of value, of attention. Somehow, in vanishing, I had set off a chain of events that I couldn't control. And now, the people I loved, and even I, were being pulled into a game far larger than a Christmas dare. I had accepted the challenge. I had vanished. But they didn't know that in doing so, I had also uncovered something, lurking, patient, and watching. Something that would not let me return to the life I thought I knew. And as I looked at Emily, eyes wide with the same fear I felt, I whispered, "We have to find out who, or what, is behind this, before it finds us first." The next morning, the house felt different. Even the walls seemed to be listening. Every creak of the floorboards made my pulse race. Emily and I moved together like a single unit, eyes darting to every shadow. I realized that we couldn't ignore it anymore. Whoever, or whatever, was behind this wasn't playing games for fun. They were observing, calculating, waiting. I decided to go back to the cabin. If this all started when I disappeared there, maybe I could find clues. Emily insisted on coming with me. The ride was silent, tense, the car filled with an electric sense of dread. Every passing figure, every honking car, felt like a threat. When we arrived at the cabin, something was off. The door was ajar. The lock broken. Inside, nothing seemed stolen, except for the Polaroids I had left behind. Every single one vanished. On the desk, instead, there was a note written in a handwriting I didn't recognize. "We've been waiting for you. You can't run anymore." Emily's hand tightened around mine. "What does it mean?" she asked, voice trembling. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew we weren't dealing with just a person. Whoever, or whatever, was watching us had followed me before I even returned home. The forest around the cabin felt different at night. Shadows seemed thicker, darker, almost alive. Strange sounds echoed between the trees, whispers that disappeared when we turned our heads. Emily and I stayed awake, huddled in the small living room, lights on, hearts pounding. Every time the wind rattled the windows, I expected a figure to appear. By the third night, it became worse. I started receiving messages again, not just texts, but things written on paper, slipped under doors and places I had thought secure. Each note contained a piece of a puzzle, a memory from my past, something only Emily and I could know, and always signed with a single symbol, a circle with a dot in the center. It felt like a countdown. And then, Emily noticed something horrifying. My reflection in the mirror was wrong. It wasn't me moving at the same time. My movements were delayed by a fraction of a second, like something was mimicking me, learning me, waiting. I couldn't tell if I was losing my mind, or if this was real. The fourth night we heard it. A soft, deliberate knock at the cabin window. I froze. Emily gripped my arm. I peeked through the blinds. Nothing. Just the trees swaying. But then, a shadow darted across the moonlight, and I saw it, eyes. Two cold, unblinking eyes staring at us from the forest. Panic surged. We locked every door, every window. But even as I did, I knew, it wasn't about doors. It was about control. Whoever, or whatever, was behind this didn't need to enter. They just needed us to know they were there. By the fifth night, sleep was impossible. We communicated in whispers, sharing everything we noticed. Every bird that suddenly stopped singing, every rustle of leaves, every creak of the floor became evidence. It was as if the forest itself had become alive, tracking us. And then, the phone rang. I had been trying to ignore calls, but this one had no number. I answered. A voice came through, calm and deliberate. "You vanished once. You thought it was a challenge. But now you've awakened us. We've been watching you all along. You can't go back. You can't disappear again. You must face it." The line went dead. Emily and I looked at each other. That was no human voice. That was something else, something that had been patient for years, waiting for someone like me to vanish, waiting for someone like Emily to feel guilty enough to follow. I realized then that my first disappearance, which had started as a childish dare, had triggered something ancient. Something that fed on attention, on fear, on secrets. And now, there was no turning back. "We need to fight it," Emily whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "Or it will keep following us forever." I nodded, though I didn't know how. But deep inside, a resolve formed. This wasn't just about family anymore. This wasn't about a dare, or proving anyone's worth. This was survival. And if we wanted to make it out alive, we would have to uncover the truth behind the shadow watching us, piece together the mystery before it consumed us completely. As the wind howled outside, I looked out into the dark forest. The eyes were still there, faint but unblinking. And I knew, the game had only just begun. The game had only just begun, and the forest knew it. The moment I stepped outside the cabin the next morning, the air felt heavier, colder, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Emily followed me, refusing to let me out of her sight. We walked slowly around the cabin, looking for any trace of footprints, any sign that someone had been watching us up close. But the ground was clean, untouched. No tracks. No indentations. Nothing. Which meant one impossible thing. Whoever had stared at us last night never touched the ground. Emily didn't say it aloud, but I saw the realization flicker in her eyes. Something wasn't human. The cabin suddenly felt unsafe, like a trap rather than a refuge. We packed our things in minutes and drove away without looking back. But even as we left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen had followed us, gliding behind the car, hidden just outside peripheral vision. The drive home was suffocating. Every road sign seemed unfamiliar. Every car felt like it was tailing us. Emily checked the rearview mirror every few seconds, her breathing short and sharp. "Do you think they're still watching?" she whispered. "I don't think they ever stopped," I answered. When we got home, Mom was pacing the living room like a caged animal. The moment she saw us, she ran toward me and hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. But her relief lasted only a second. She pulled back, eyes widening. "What happened to your face?" she whispered. I froze. "My face?" She stepped closer, trembling as her thumb brushed my cheek. "Your reflection," she said. "Just now, in the mirror behind you, it wasn't moving with you." A chill shot through me. Emily and I exchanged a horrified glance. The same delayed reflection she had seen in the cabin. Mom went pale, covering her mouth. Dad stood in the doorway, fists clenched, trying to understand what was happening. That night, we blocked every window, every crack of light, every mirror. Emily insisted we all sleep in the living room, but sleep never came. Every sound made us flinch. The house groaned like something ancient had taken root inside it. And then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the power went out. Not just the lights, everything. The refrigerator. The heating. Even our phones died simultaneously, like the energy had been drained from the entire house. Mom whimpered. Emily grabbed my hand. Dad rushed to the window and froze. "There's someone outside," he whispered. My heart stopped. Emily and I turned to look. At first, we saw nothing, only darkness, the shape of the trees swaying. Then, between two branches, a figure emerged. Tall. Perfectly still. No face. No features. Just a silhouette with two faint, dim white points where the eyes should be. Dad backed away, his voice breaking. What is that?" But before any of us could move, something inexplicable happened. Our dead phones lit up. Every single one. Screens glowing with blinding white light. Then a message appeared on all four at exactly the same time. "Stop hiding. You started this. Now finish it." Emily dropped her phone, shaking violently. Mom began to pray under her breath. Dad stood completely still, jaw clenched, trying to hold himself together. The message disappeared. Then another. "Look out the window." Against every instinct in my body, I turned my head back toward the glass. The figure was closer, impossibly close. Just beyond the porch steps. Still motionless. Still watching. But now, there were more behind it. Shapes emerging one by one from the darkness. A silent audience of figures with no faces, no identity, no movement, just presence. Dozens of them. My breath caught in my throat. "Emily," I whispered. "We didn't wake one. We woke all of them." Then the front door handle began to move. Slow. Deliberate. Testing. Emily screamed. Dad ran to push his weight against the door. Mom dragged a bookshelf toward it. I grabbed anything I could use as a weapon, even though deep down, I knew weapons wouldn't matter. The handle stopped. Silence. Then, all at once, every window in the house slammed inward as if struck by a hurricane of invisible force. Glass shattered. Wind roared through the living room. The lights flickered back on and off in rapid, violent bursts. And then, everything snapped to pure, absolute stillness. No wind. No movement. Not a single sound. The figures outside had vanished. The house went quiet. Too quiet. Emily whispered, voice trembling. "I think this is only the beginning." And in that moment, I realized she was right. My disappearance hadn't just started a game. It had summoned something. Something that had been waiting for someone to step outside the world's notice, even for a moment. Something ancient, patient, watching the spaces between silence and forgetting. And now, it wanted us.